What's happening? A happy Tuesday to all of you. Thanks for joining me as always. It is much appreciated. We will get to Bill Belichick and whether or not the Patriots should just fire the head coach and GM right now during the season. Is it a mistake to keep him throughout the rest of this year? We'll get to that. But first, we're 6 days away from going live every weekday right here on YouTube at 11 a.m. Eastern. 11 a.m. Eastern every weekday, Monday through Friday, starting next Monday, December 4th. We go live. Let's get to 200 likes. Trying to get to 200 likes on this podcast today, on this video. The more likes means more eyeballs as we build this community and get ready to go live next Monday. All right, so should the Patriots just get this over with and fire Bill Belichick? Some would say, Nick, why would you just let this continue? Why would we let this thing continue? It's a mess, a disaster. It's time for Bill to go. We all know that he's going to go at the end of this season. Why not just cut your losses right now, cut the cord, and move on from Bill Belichick? Why not give Gerard Mayo a chance? If he's the guy, if he's going to be the next guy for Robert Kraft and company, why not just give him the chance to be the next head coach as the interim head coach, see how he does at the end of this season, and then adjust accordingly if you need to, right? That's a reasonable take. It's reasonable to wonder why not fire Bill Belichick. All of it's reasonable when you're 2-9. And Tony Maserati wrote about this at 985thesportshub.com yesterday. Here's what Maz wrote. Serious question. Why exactly must the Patriots wait to fire Belichick? Patriots seem to be growing more dysfunctional at an even faster rate. Players are openly arguing with positional coaches. Receivers and the quarterback are repeatedly miscommunicating. And most importantly, after a week during which Belichick repeatedly told everyone to be ready, the Pats looked more unprepared and rattled than ever. Today, if you gave him truth serum, I'm not sure Belichick himself would admit that he wants to be here to present it. Now, I'm going to go with a non-sentimental view on this because I've said before, people have asked me throughout this season, why is Belichick still here? Why will Robert Kraft not pull the trigger? And I've said most of it is out of sentimentality. Some of it is due to respect. The fact that Belichick has literally made Robert Kraft hundreds of millions of dollars by helping this team win 6 Super Bowls, get to a bunch of them, and get to a bazillion AFC championship games. And out of that respect, to fire somebody in the middle of a season would say, enough is enough. We got to get rid of you. And it would be disrespectful to a point because of what Bill has done, right? So we've gone over that sentimental idea that Kraft is not going to do the disrespectful thing. He's going to do right by Bill because of all of the success that Bill has had. I want to approach this in a different way. I want to approach this in a cutthroat, cold world business way. And that's what I'm going to do today. Football is a business. And the best business decision for the Patriots is to play out the string with Belichick. The best business decision for Robert Kraft is not to fire Belichick. And you might be listening to this or watching this and questioning whether or not I've gone crazy. We talked about it yesterday. I'm not crazy. You're not crazy. At least I don't think you're crazy. What's crazy is this situation. What's crazy is what's happened to this Patriots organization, right? That's what's crazy. But here's why keeping Bill for the rest of the year is the best business decision. First of all, he's not coaching well. We went over that yesterday. You can check out the podcast. He's making several unusual, or some would say at this point, usual decisions on 4th down. He's handling the quarterback position much differently than he has in over 20 years. There's all of these things, right? So you could argue that keeping Belichick at the top of this organization for the rest of the season is what's best for business because Belichick is actually helping you lose games instead of win games. So why would you remove the guy? Why would you remove him when you're 2-9 and all of these questions are hovering around the team and there seems to be just a ton of mismanagement? The coaching staff's not very good right now. The head coach is not very good right now. So why would you want to mess with that? We've seen before. We saw it with the Raiders. Even if it's 2 or 3 wins, there's the possibility of having the interim head coach boost happen. Gerard Mayo takes over. He changes things up a little bit. He lets go some of the staff. The guys find that spirit. They feel better about themselves. They feel better about the team. They believe more in Gerard Mayo at this point than they do in Belichick. And you have that interim head coach boost. 2-3 wins for the Patriots could be the difference between you getting a top 2 pick and picking at like 6 or 7. So I would not even want to risk that interim head coach boost if I were Robert Kraft. Keep this ship sinking. Keep it sinking for the rest of this year. That's the best case scenario. There's no reason to try to win 4 or 5 games here. Lose out. Keep the guy in charge that's been losing all season long. That looks like he wants to go. So that's the first thing I would say. Secondly, why is keeping Belichick the best business decision? Because beyond priority number 1 being losing in the big picture, and I don't think Belichick is tanking, and I don't think the team is I'm not going there. I'm just not going there. I disagree with people who believe this is happening intentionally. And I think when you say that this is happening intentionally, you are excusing Bill Belichick's awful decisions, awful personnel, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go there. I don't think a team that is intentionally tanking would play as conservatively as the Patriots did against the Giants on Sunday. That was a team that was trying to keep that game close. So that doesn't tell me they're trying to tank. But beyond losing for the rest of this season being priority number 1 in the big picture for this team, priority number 2 would be asset accumulation. And keeping Belichick gives you the option of trading Belichick once the season is over. And some people might think that there's no way that a team would trade for Bill Belichick. Why would somebody want to bring in Bill Belichick after what they've seen Belichick do the last couple of years in New England? We'll get to that in a minute, but first, we have to acknowledge that Carolina made a move yesterday. They fired Frank Reich. He gone. No more Frank Reich in Carolina. And Greg Bedard posted this yesterday. This is about the time neophyte disastrous owners throw their hands up and hire someone like Belichick and get out of the way, or at least try to. Carolina could be so desperate at this point. Dave Tepper, the owner of that team, he runs through head coaches like I run through underwear. I mean, the guy changes head coaches constantly. Frank Reich did not even get a season. So maybe, just maybe, Tepper's at the point of being so desperate, as Bedard posted, he throws his hands up and he says, you know what? Let's just give this thing to Bill Belichick. Let's give it to Belichick and let's see how he can run it, because what has happened over the last 5 or 6 years just isn't good enough. Adam Schefter on Pat McAfee yesterday. He said there could be as many as 7 to 10 NFL teams looking for new head coaches. 7 to 10. That's a bunch. Now, as much as we look at Belichick and we wonder what has gone wrong here, right? And we see all of the flaws, we see all of the misses, whether it's personnel or coaching, we see it. It's clear to me. Now, maybe some of you are still defending the Bill Belichick wall. For you, I wish you good luck. I've moved beyond that. Post Brady, it has been a precipitous drop, falling right into this 2-9 nightmare, right? So we see all of that. But if you're an owner, do you really believe that there are 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 guys that would represent an upgrade over Belichick? A lot of these coaches that are going to get head coaching jobs, it's the first time they're going to have a head coaching gig. So do you think there are going to be 6, 7, 8, 9 owners in the NFL that are willing to take a chance on a first-time head coach instead of making a deal for a Belichick? Because no matter how bad it's been post-Brady, you could still look at Belichick's first 20 years. And I know people say, oh, well, that was all Brady. I disagree. It wasn't all Brady. They drafted Brady. They developed Brady. They took care of Brady the first couple of years when he wasn't ready to be the GOAT quite yet. You have to look at Belichick defensively and what he did against Peyton Manning year in and year out. You have to look at what Belichick did against the Rams in 2018, shutting that offense down. So there are plenty of things that Belichick did that helped this team win championships. And even if you want to give Belichick 20% credit for it, which I wouldn't, I would give him more credit than that. But even if you wanted to argue and said that Belichick was 20% of those wins, those Super Bowl wins, right? You might credit him for the first one because Brady was young and it was really defense and the personnel moves defensively that they made that worked out. Even if you want to give him 2001 and 2018, those are two more Super Bowls than any of these new head coaches would have won as head coaches. So the market is ripe. If you're Robert Kraft, you're looking at an NFL that is going to be desperate to find head coaches across the league. And we went through the names a week or two ago. The names aren't spectacular. There are 4 or 5 guys that I look at that I say, ooh, I'd be really interested in. But if I'm Carolina, if I'm a team that's desperate, do I want to pick one of those young guys? And here's the other thing. How many of those guys that are going to be out there looking for head coaching gigs, how many of them would be willing to take a Carolina job instead of taking the other 7, 8, or 9 other jobs that are going to be possibly available, according to Adam Schefter? If there are 10 head coaching gigs, that's 1/3 of the league almost. 1/3 of the league looking for a head coach. I have to believe that if 1/3 of the NFL is looking for a head coach, Bill Belichick is going to land somewhere, no matter what he's done the past 2 or 3 years. He's going to get a gig. There are not more than 4 or 5, sexier names than Belichick. Ben Johnson is one. We can go through the list, but you can check out the pod we did a couple of weeks ago. We went into great detail about some of the young minds in the game. There's not 4 or 5 sexier names on that list than a Bill Belichick. If you're looking at it from the outside, if you're looking at it from Carolina's point of view, Sean Payton was traded to Denver last offseason. It was Sean Payton and a 2024 third-round pick to Denver. Denver, in return, gave the Saints a first-round pick in 2023 and a second-round pick in 2024. So it was Payton and a future third for a first and a future second. I think it's logical to believe you could get a first-round pick from a team. Now, I know Carolina doesn't have a first-round pick. Maybe you look at Carolina at the top of the second round. If you're the Patriots, you have 2 of the top 3 or 4 picks in the second round, which gives you a lot of fluidity to move up late in the first round and maybe, I don't know, draft a young quarterback in case you don't get Drake May or Caleb Williams, or in case you don't love those 2 guys. It gives you a lot of flexibility. And because you wouldn't get a first-round pick this year, I bet you can get a lot more than a future second, right? You could get a second this year at the top of that round, and you might be able to get a first next year, or you might be able to get a second next year along with a third. Who knows? The point is, every asset that you can get for Belichick is worth it. Even if you don't get multiple first-round picks or a first round, any asset you get helps this roster. So I think when you look around and you hear the Adam Schefters of the world say 7 to 10 gigs being open, if you're Robert Kraft, you're not going to fire Belichick, allow him to be a free agent, and walk into a situation. You want to hold on to every little itsy-bitsy piece of leverage that you have. And you're going to look at Belichick and you're going to say, look, things haven't worked out. Let's mutually part ways. We want to send you somewhere. Maybe it's the Commanders. Reports are that Ron Rivera is pretty much donezo after this year. But we want to send you somewhere that you're comfortable with and that you could finish your career. If you fire Belichick and he walks out that door, he's going to walk into another door and you're going to get a Zippo. That's not what you want to do. We're talking about asset accumulation, baby. We're talking picks, and more picks. Now, the one question is, would Belichick be tough to work with, or will he want out of New England at this point? It feels like Belichick wants out. It feels like he's had enough. It feels like everybody else has pretty much had enough, and we all know that it's time to go. All right, we talked about Mike Vrabel a couple of weeks ago, but a friend of mine had a very interesting report on Vrabel's future. We'll get to that report in a minute. But before we do that, we're going live on YouTube every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern starting next Monday. So starting next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, live on YouTube, The Nick Cattle Show. Subscribe and get notified, right? You want to click that bell, get notifications. If you subscribe, the video pops up, you're ready to roll and watch it live. So give us those likes, trying to get to 200 likes on this video today. Help us get to the goal of 200 likes today. Also comment and subscribe. All right, let's move on to Vrabel. Now, Tennessee beat Carolina on Sunday. Yay. The Titans are 4-7 on the season. Is Mike Vrabel an option for the Patriots? Now, again, we discussed Vrabel going back several weeks ago, and I had Vrabel in my top 5. I have not finalized my top 5 list of prospective head coaches for the Patriots. Don't at me just yet. You can follow me, though, at Nick C Radio right there. But I went through the Vrabel thing, and I told you why Vrabel is in my top 5. But would Vrabel actually be an option? Is it realistic? Diana Rossini of The Athletic wrote this last week. Frustrated Patriots fans can stop hoping Robert Kraft will trade and replace Belichick with Mike Vrabel. Rossini writes it's not happening. Angry Tennessee fans can stop hoping owner Amy Adams Strunk fires Vrabel. It's not happening. Based on multiple conversations with high-ranking Titans officials, the franchise strongly and collectively believes it has the right coach for long-term success. Now, high-ranking officials obviously tells me this is coming from the team. This is the team point of view. What's Vrabel's point of view? The team might want to keep Mike. Does Mike want to stay around? Does Mike find that to be an option that gets him excited? Is he pumped and jacked to stay in Tennessee? I mean, he did just sign an extension, but this year's off the rails. The roster looks like it's on its way to a complete rebuild. They have a new GM, more on that in a minute. But does Vrabel want to stay? Titans high-ranking officials think that Vrabel's the guy. Okay, that's great. But if Vrabel wants out, you're not going to keep a guy that wants out. A very, very intelligent person once told me that employers, they hate one thing: unhappy employees. You want out of a job, be unhappy, you'll get out of a job. That's what that person told me. Now, is this just leverage from Tennessee? That could be it, right? Same reason why Belichick is going to stay here in New England for the rest of this year. Same reason why Kraft is going to hold on to him. Not necessarily because he loves Bill Belichick and the job that he's doing right now, because it's what's best for business. This is what's best for business for Tennessee. Yes, maybe they want to keep Vrabel, but they also know if Vrabel wants out, they want to play some hardball. And they're telling teams, no, we think Vrabel's the guy. So they're trying to draw that line. So this could easily be leverage from Tennessee. But there's more on Vrabel. My friend Greg Bedard wrote about this on BSJ. A lot of people around the NFL took note of this quote from Vrabel when he was inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame. Quote, "I don't want you to take this organization for granted. I've been a lot of places. This is a special place with great leadership, great fans, great direction, and great coaching. Enjoy it. It's not like this everywhere," unquote. Bedard continues, many believe that Vrabel was put in the position of being a strong head coach and wanted the hiring of Ran Carthon as GM. That is incorrect. That was a shotgun marriage by ownership. NFL sources believe the league had a heavy hand in owner Amy Adams Strunk hiring Carthon. Vrabel and Carthon had no previous relationship, and it's believed they don't have much of one now. So Bedard says, hey, if you think Vrabel was granted all of this power, right? Got a contract extension a little while ago. They fired the GM, John Robinson. They brought in Ran Carthon. If you thought that was Vrabel calling the shots, if you thought that Vrabel had some power within that organization now, you're wrong. The GM was an owner call. And GM and head coach, they don't really have a relationship. And that makes the gig tough. Because you know you're rebuilding a roster in Tennessee now, right? That's where you're headed. And if you're the head coach, you want to be aligned with the GM. You want to trust and believe what the GM is going to do. It's very difficult to believe in that vision if you don't have a relationship and if you're questioning the guy. Here's more from Bedard. League sources believe that Vrabel could be looking for a way to force his way out of Tennessee after this season. Maybe that's why the high-ranking officials spoke to Diana Rossini, right? If those rumors are going around, if Greg Bedard is saying that league sources believe that Vrabel could be looking to force his way out, you know the Titans' high-ranking officials in ownership, they know that. They've heard the same things that Greg is hearing. And so what do? Again, you draw the hard line, even if it's just for bargaining power. Back to Bedard, the Patriots would be an obvious landing spot, if not the front runner. Could the Crafts trade Belichick to the Commanders, Chargers, or Panthers and then secure Vrabel? It's not out of the realm of possibility. So according to Bedard, Vrabel wants out. Patriots would be an option. Patriots could actually be the front runner. Vrabel does not have a relationship with the GM. He does not have any great power in Tennessee. And he could be looking for a way to force himself out of there. All interesting stuff. Now, again, Vrabel's in my top 5. You can check out the podcast from a few weeks ago for all the reasons why. I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to give you some other thoughts after reading this stuff over the weekend. I am not trading a day 1 or day 2 pick for any coach. Even if Vrabel's in my top 5, I am not trading a first-round pick or a second-round pick or even a third-round pick for Mike Vrabel. Those picks are going to be worth an awful lot to the Patriots. They need talent. And that third-round pick is not going to be in the middle of the round. It's going to be at the top of the third round. It's going to be as good as a second-round pick, frankly. I am not trading a day 1 or day 2 pick for Mike Vrabel or any other coach. As I mentioned in the previous segment, the Patriots now, one of their top priorities is asset accumulation. You are trying to gather as many draft picks as you can to help rebuild this franchise and to reset this roster. Any pick that you give away for a coach is one less pick that you can move in a trade for a player or to draft a player that can help this team. So I am not trading a day 1 or day 2 pick. Just not going to do it. Now, if you're the Patriots, the other thing you have to think about, how desirable are you? When you're looking at these possible head coaching prospects, do you have the right guy for the job? Is that guy coming in the right guy for the job? If you have a pool of like 8 names, how many of those names do you believe truly, with every fiber of your being, if you're Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft, who do you believe out of those 7 or 8 names are truly ready for the job? Who is that guy? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? I don't know. That's for them to answer. How many of those guys that you believe are the guy would actually want the job? You could go to Ben Johnson and you could say, hey, Ben Johnson, we want you to be the new head coach of the New England Patriots. And Ben Johnson might say, thanks, but no thanks. Your roster is a mess on offense. You don't have a quarterback. I'm looking for a team that has a quarterback. Maybe Ben Johnson wants to go to the Chargers. Maybe Ben Johnson thinks Sam Howell is good. Maybe Ben Johnson looks at Bryce Young in Carolina and says, well, he was, a top pick. I can go and get the most out of that guy. Carolina, their offensive coaching staff, Frank Reich, had no idea what to do with him. So if you have a pool of 8 names, how many of those names do you actually think could be the right guy for the Patriots if you're the Crafts? And how many of those guys actually want the job, would take the job? We don't know. Here's another thing. I am not against hiring a young offensive mind as a head coach. We went over that when we went through the list of names a couple of weeks ago. Again, check out that podcast. There are multiple names on my top 5 list that are young offensive minds. But, and this is a big but, when you look at this roster, the defense is more settled. The defense is more settled. So if you bring in a young offensive mind as the head coach, that's putting a lot on that guy. Let's say you hire Ben Johnson. You have to replace Bill Belichick, who, whether you like it or not, is a legend. He is known in many circles as the greatest coach of all time. You first have to replace that guy. You're a first-time head coach. You have to replace the best that's done it over 23, 24, 25 years. You have to replace that guy. Then you have to overhaul the entire offense from scratch. Then you have to replenish the roster and bring in all sorts of new talent and new names and work them into this system. And you're doing this while you're on the job training. That is a lot to put on a Ben Johnson. That's a lot of responsibility, man. For a first-time head coach, somebody that's never done the gig before, you're replacing a legend. You're replacing the entire offense. You're overhauling the roster. And you're doing this with on-the-job training. That's very, very difficult. It might be better to hire a defensive guy because the defense is more settled. Bring in a young offensive coordinator who could solely focus on the offense. and say, all right, we're in a better position now. New GM, pick the groceries. And that defensive-minded head coach could focus on coaching, in-game management, right? In-game strategy, all of the bigger picture things, challenges and timeouts and fourth down decisions. You want to bring in Ben Johnson, first-time head coach? And I'm not telling you it would be a bad move. I'm just saying, devil's advocate. You want to bring in Ben Johnson, first-time ever head coach, replace a legend, reset the entire offense, reset most of this roster, and you want him to be handling the offense? Do you want him handling the offense on game day? Who's he bringing in as an offensive coordinator? Is that person qualified? Still lots of questions to dig into this. And I'll just leave you with this before we get into Mac versus Zappe for a second. Here's a hypothetical. What if Robert Kraft goes out and gets Thomas Dimitroff? He hasn't been in the NFL in a few years, did a great job at Atlanta, has a history with the organization. His history with Belichick is that he was not a yes man. He fought Belichick on several decisions. Belichick won, but Dimitroff fought him on those, so he was not a yes man. He was with the organization when Mike Vrabel was with the organization. So how about a Dimitroff-Mike Vrabel combination? And you either bring in a young offensive mind, or how about Josh McDaniels? And I know people, look, head coach, he's terrible. Offensive coordinator, he's one of the best. He's one of the best offensive coordinators in the game. Dimitroff, Vrabel, McDaniels. Just a hypothetical. All right. An interesting thought about the quarterback handling that hasn't been talked about a lot. Get to that. But don't forget, we're 6 days away from going live every weekday on YouTube at 11 a.m. Let's get to 200 likes. Like, comment, and subscribe. The quarterback room stinks. I'm only going to spend a couple of minutes on this. The QB room stinks. Mac is broken. Zappe has not been good. So why have the Patriots been handling Mac Jones differently than Bailey Zappe? And I asked this question because Andrew Callahan posted the following. Bill O'Brien made a hard pivot with Zappe, going run heavy on first down after he was pass heavy with Mac. First down, Mac 79% pass rate, Zappe 25% pass rate. So when Mac was in the game, they were throwing the football more on first down. Zappe came in, it was run, short screen. And my question is, why are you handling these two quarterbacks differently? Neither are good. Right now, Mac's broken, Zappe. The game plan tells us that the Patriots looked at Mac Jones as somebody who could still win a football game. That's what the game plan tells us. The way they handled Mac against the Giants was, yeah, he's not great. We're not going to put a ton in his hands. We're not going to go too crazy here, but we're going to treat him as a competent NFL starting quarterback. When Zappe came in, they handled him like he was a high school quarterback. So why is there a difference? Like, the game plan to me should have been, we're going to strip it all down. I don't care if it's Mac. I don't care if it's Zappe. We're going bare bones, baby. We are stripping this puppy down. We're stripping it down. We're running early. We're running often. They should have run the football 50 times against the Giants. And I don't get it. Whether Mac's your quarterback or Zappe's the quarterback, they were fairly close reportedly in practice. So why are you going into this game believing that Mac is that much better than Zappe to the point where you're going to ask him to do more than Zappe? Like, your offense is so bad, strip it down. Run the ball 50 times. I just don't get that. You're at that place, unfortunately. You can't trust either guy to throw the ball more than 10 yards. That's where you're at. So I don't get it. You should, if you believe in Mac enough to start him on Sunday, which again, I would not have. If you believe in Mac enough to treat him like he's a competent quarterback on Sunday with your game plan, if you feel that way, then you should be trying to piece Mac back together. And the way you do that is, if you start him, you give him less at the line of scrimmage. You run the ball more. You give him one read, and if it's not there, throw the football in the third row. If you're going to play Mac Jones, that's the way you should be handling him. I just don't understand the approach. And did they think that splitting reps would prepare either quarterback appropriately? Tom Curran posted this. Here's how we'll say goodbye today. In the week leading up to the regular season game against the Rams in 2001, Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe split snaps at quarterback. After that, Brady was named starter. This is what Bill said in 2019, just 4 years ago. So this was in retrospect, in hindsight. Belichick said this 4 years ago. In retrospect, I looked at it and thought it would be hard for anyone to play well getting half the reps. He said that 4 years ago. It would be hard for anyone to play well getting half the reps. But yet, that's what Belichick did last week with the quarterbacks. Off of a bye week. And then had the game plan they had. None of it made sense. All right, I hope all of you have a great, fantastical Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Until then, it's the Nick Cattle Show.